Welcome to OTCL 520, week number 3. Deep breath. You made it this far. You're doing good. I'm very pleased with the performance of everyone in the class so far. This week, we take on Hebrew prepositions in chapter 6. Now, there are several kinds, and you'll read about them in the chapter. They are very important in Hebrew as they are in every language. For instance, if your car were to go up to the house, that's very different from going through the house. If your airplane was flying over the house, that would be very different from flying under the house. So it's very important to know the difference of a verb used with a preposition. In fact, there's a very large dictionary, the Classical Dictionary of Hebrew Language, up here by David Klein's. It's very expensive. I bought them one volume at a time at a very substantial discount. It's the only way I could afford them. And they make a very careful distinction between the verbs and the prepositions that they use. And that's very helpful in understanding the language itself. So that's an important tool. You now have access to this because you know the Hebrew alphabet and you're learning all the words. They particularly distinguish very carefully the different usages. Now, last week we talked about Brown, Driver, and Briggs. We're going to talk about Keeler, Baumgartner, and they usually talk about these, but in a very shortened kind of way. Chapter 7 deals with adjectives, and perhaps the distinction between adjectives and adverbs might be a little bit difficult for you. The only way I was ever able to remember the distinction was adverbs add to the verbs, adjectives add to everything else. That's kind of a rough distinction and not really very good, but it can help as you try and separate them in your mind and try to understand the distinctions. The summary in 7.7 will help direct you there. Fortunately, the endings on adjectives are the same ones that you already learned from nouns. Who said Hebrew grammar was difficult? It's so easy. If you get one down, you get the rest down. Now, last time we talked about Brown, Driver, Briggs and their lexicon of the Old Testament. This is a fantastic tool and relatively inexpensive. It'll have tremendous articles, but it was done a long time ago and it's very old. And some of the articles are very, very long. So how do you know if they're going to discuss your particular verse with your particular word? Well, there's an index that goes verse by verse through the scriptures, and it's absolutely incredibly helpful. So if you get BDB, get your hands on this piece. It's very, very nice, very, very helpful. Keeler, Baumgartner is a lexicon done by these punctilious Germans, and it's a very good dictionary. Probably the most up-to-date dictionary, and it's been translated into English, so you don't have to read German. Keeler, Baumgartner, you might guess they're German. This is really the best. It came out in fascicles, 5 fascicles of about $500 each. I couldn't afford that. So they have a student edition, $125 for the whole thing. Highly recommended, really the latest, most up-to-date piece. As you go through this lesson, don't forget to read the discussion by Bruce Walke in 7.9. He's absolutely a treasure in his knowledge of the scripture and his love for Jesus. If you can buy anything that he's written, I don't agree with him 100% on everything, but you should buy what you can get from him. Hope you have a really great week. Again, if there's any problems at all, contact me and we'll work through whatever it is. Have a great week.